But going back to, say, news organizations,
Sure.
I don't know of a news organization that will allow publishing of any article, and they would justify the firing of any reporter if the reporter doesn't fall into what they deem as their line.
So why didn't they tell me what their line is?
I think they told you that their line was they wanted more reportage. And
No, that's never been conveyed. As I said, if you go back, this is what Sanjeev Goenka says is conveyed to every reporter when he joins. That's Sanjeev Goenka is lying through his hat. You can talk to any reporter in Open Magazine who's been hired, and if any one of them backs that claim, you're welcome to come back to me and ask me that again. And even people who are employed, who are under that kind of pressure from ownership, will not uphold that claim of Sanjeev Goenka's. That's a lie. After my resignation, the publisher is today going around trying to tell reporters that we have to avoid opinion. If this had already been briefed to them, why is he now going around and trying to tell them that we have to avoid opinion? This is a after the fact and afterthought a justification, and it's complete nonsense. Sanjeev Goenka is lying.
Okay, supposing he had told you that no commentary, no political
He hasn't
opinion.
told me. Where's the question?
No. If you're in Open,
Sure.
and say Manu or Sanjeev
Sure.
Goenka tells you, or any news
Sure.
organization that you're working for tells you that no political opinion, only reportage, what would you do? Would you resign then, or would you carry on with reportage?
See, it's a question of, as he said, at the time you join. If at that time I know this is not to be done, if as a reporter, I've done a lot of fairly good reporting in my career. And if I wanted at that stage to do more reporting, and even in this job, I've done quite a bit of reporting, as is quite evident to anybody who goes through the website and checks. I would have worked on those terms if I wanted to, but that option was never put in front of me. They were actively encouraging, I'm talking of the editorial, for me to write opinions, I mean, for me to write commentary analysis. I mean, if you have a separate page called opinion, what do you write on that page?
Reportage.
Reportage. I mean, come on. So.
But if you say, would you have had a problem in just sticking to reporting?
Well, see, if at that stage I had come to know that because of political pressure, my opinion was giving them trouble, and at that stage they tried to sit down and tell me, look, these are the limits of what you can do or not do, then it would be up to me to decide at that stage whether I want to work there or not. But that was not an option that was ever offered. None of this discussion takes place with me. One day I learn a rumor that this may be happening. Not even nobody in Delhi editorial knows. I go ask Manu, is this true? He says, yes, something like this has been brewing. It comes as a complete shock to me. This happens a month ago. I mean, I had not the slightest inkling that such a move could even be conceived in this organization, where, I mean, continuously I've been told, yes, this is great work. You are writing this. This is what people are saying. He mentioned something about my television. I've been encouraged. I was reluctant to go on television. Post-Radia tapes, I was encouraged by both Manu and the publisher, one, to go defend our stand. Second, because it gives visibility to Open. You have to remember that Open didn't create us as journalists. We were journalists with a track record who created Open. Open didn't come with a great brand name. The Sanjeev Goenka Group is not a great media name. If Open today exists as a recognizable organization in the media space, it is because of the journalists who worked for it and did the work that was done. So Sanjeev Goenka has very little to do with it.
It's a catch-22 that they want to be known, but they don't want to be known that way.
No,
it's that Benji, this game.
Now they've decided. 5 years they've ridden on this. Sanjeev Goenka has gone around saying he's owner of this magazine. Now when it becomes inconvenient before the elections, and you want a sacrificial goat, he's maybe just picked the wrong sacrificial goat, I think. I mean, that's his problem. He should have the ability as a businessman to judge what he's getting into.
Who to pick a fight with.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you look at the recent firings that have taken place in the last 6 months, NDTV has let go hundreds. TV18, as you know, has let go almost 300-400, if I'm not wrong. I did let go a huge number. I'm not sure of the exact number, but huge number of people. As have other news organizations, I believe. Are you saying that journalists should not, cannot, will ever be fired?
No, look, if you go back to the law, and by now I know the law on these things quite well, there's a difference between retrenchment and termination. The retrenchment, if you're losing money, if for business reasons it becomes necessary to lay off people, then there's a set process by which you go down. You draw up a list of people, the people who've joined last, look at seniority, everything. You still have to justify that whole process, but you can, under those circumstances, take action. But in my case, it's not retrenchment. No, they're not going through business restructuring. I mean, your political editor after 5 years cannot become redundant in the middle of the most important election this country has seen in quite a while. I mean, that would make very little sense. So this is a very different case, and it directly impinges on press freedom because they are getting rid of me because suddenly now it is inconvenient for them that my views are being expressed in this magazine when they've actively encouraged me to write these views for so long.
So, Hartosh, are we looking at a journalist who will now become a full-time litigant because this has been what happens to people who and then end up destroying their careers in the meantime because you become, may I say, quietly unemployable?
Look,
because people know you as a troublemaker?
At some point or the other, this battle has to be fought. I don't have to be a full-time litigant. I'm a litigant. The last time I left a job, which I finished a book. I'm contracted to write a book on the 1984 killings. It's the 30th anniversary next year. I think it's a great opportunity for me to do the kind of reportage I think the Congress would love reading in any case.
The Congress?
Well, I mean...
On the 84 riots?
Well, I'm suggesting that, yes, they want reportage. I will do, I think, what is necessary in this country to bring out what we really do not often write about because of these kind of pressures. And I mean, so in every such thing, there's an opportunity. So if media organizations don't employ me, it is up to me to use my skills to do what I think is proper at this point.
But you could, what you said was that if you had been told to cut the opinion and do reportage, you could have turned it around.
When I do my reportage,
there's no problem with that.
Yeah,
so you could have done it. That's point one. Point two is that when you're writing in a column that is entitled Opinion, what are you supposed to do?
Exactly.
Okay. Point three that I made was that what is an owner supposed to do, or any news organization, when a journalist is causing him problems in his other businesses? That's my question to you. So you're an idealistic journalist who will write what he believes in,
sure,
much of which I disagree with, but
which is perfectly fine.
But the point is that you are saying that journalists will hold owners to the responsibility of allowing journalists to write whatever they want with whatever political slant they want.
No, absolutely not. You set out your vision. Set it down, be clear. There's a mandate when I'm joining. Here is the charter under which we are operating.
But Hartosh, as you know, in day-to-day reporting, certain influence, certain nuances can't be communicated to a reporter.
Plus, as I said, there's a filter. If I was the editor, you could again be pressing these questions on me. Okay. There's a filter. I'm filing these stories. I mean, I'm in no position to say, Manu, you cannot kill this story. You cannot edit the story. You cannot do something to the story. Manu receives the story. He clears it. The desk edits it. It's put on paper. What is the message I'm supposed to take away from that? Yes, I'm free to write what I'm writing. And how can that then be held to my account and not the editor's?
Except I respect your point of view personally, but Hartosh, I don't know of a news organization who gives the kind of freedom that you're looking for.
No, I'm not saying I'm looking for the kind of freedom I had, but I'm saying that all of us are pragmatic human beings. We work under a certain set of constraints. We understand the constraints. If you go back and look at Open, for example, we all know that Open operates in a certain atmosphere. The RPG group, the Sanjeev Goenka RPG group, is sitting in Calcutta. How many pieces have you found on Mamata Banerjee in Open magazine? Mamata Banerjee can make Sanjeev Goenka get up on stage and sing a song for her whenever she wants. I mean, these things are not lost on people. You understand that there are certain constraints.
There's an undercurrent.
There's an undercurrent.
And an understanding that permeates every organization. Ke usko nahi chhuna, usko positive rakhna. Word gets around.
Sure, but
so the owner doesn't have to sit down and give you a brief.
But if in this...
Especially with someone like you who would never listen.
In the middle of this election, if somebody is saying, no, let's not write about Rahul, let's not write about Sonia, let's not write about Modi, let's report, then we should be a TV channel. If we don't have perspective, then we should be a TV channel or a daily newspaper. Let's shut the magazine,
You could do horoscopes or do tele-shopping.
Absolutely, a lot of various things, I mean, advice on yoga, whatever, beauty treatments. I mean, I think several options are available, and I mean, Sanjeev should go explore them rather than try and bring out a magazine which pretends to deal with politics today.
Isn't it kind of an extreme expectation from you to expect Manu to resign?
No, I'm not expecting
he has a life.
No, I'm not expecting him to resign. I'm saying that's his decision. I'm saying
but
that
you did imply that if you were in his place, it would have been over your dead body.
I'd still say that I will never let this happen to a reporter of mine. And I
will never be an editor, considering what nobody would make you an editor considering your positions.
Well,
they'd be scared to.
No skin off my back, you know. I mean, I'm in this profession to write what I think is right, not to be an editor of a magazine and put that above journalistic considerations. That's not why I am in this profession. Big deal being an editor, you know. I mean, if that is what it comes to.
Big deal being a political editor who only writes opinion and doesn't report.
And doesn't report and writes opinion. When you title it opinion and call it commentary and call it perspective, that's when he writes opinion. Yeah, that's a problem, I think. Serious problem.
If you were to meet Manu today, what would you say to him?
Same thing. Manu and I were on very good terms, you know. I mean, we get along very well.
But you felt let down by him?
Well, look, as I said, in one of those conversations that took place, which I mailed to my lawyer, he told me, see, he's the man who opens the way to discussion. You are free to discuss terms. I have told them that I will not let the termination happen. I will quit if this termination happens. He doesn't quit, that's his call. I mean, he can account for that. He's asked in an editorial meeting in the magazine by reporters after I have left. He says, I've offered to resign 3 times in the past. So they asked him, but what about this time? He said, but this time they would have accepted it. Now that says something, as far as I'm concerned. That is my point of view.
Maybe he's joking.
Maybe he's joking. I mean,
it sounds like a joke.
Serious Manu, yeah, maybe he's joking. It sounds like a joke.
Serious Manu, that's his Twitter handle. But it sounds like he's saying that tongue in cheek.
Maybe, but that's the answer that they were given when they asked the question in all seriousness.
And if you were to meet Sanjeev Goenka today, what would you say to him?
I don't think I have much.
Keep your language clean, but what would you say to him?
I don't think I have much to say to people of this kind.
Explain.
This kind, I mean, he shouldn't be in this business at all, you know. I mean,
who should be in this? Look at all the TV channels. Look at all the newspapers. Who are they owned by?
Sure. When I'm working for them, you can ask me about them. I'm telling you my experience of the past 5 years. I think we had a very good experience at Open. But what has now happened seems to suggest that you use 4 years or 5 years of journalistic credibility to bargain it away for some reason or the other. I cannot imply anything more than that. But certainly what has happened is journalistically unethical. Either you run a magazine where people understand right from the beginning, the reader understands this, that you know you are a flawed character, you cannot sustain a magazine. Character in the sense of businessmen have their interests, they have to make sure the magazine subscribes to those interests. But if 5 years you have been running a magazine which stands for something, you cannot change that right before the most important elections this country has seen.
So would you say that all the people who were fired from TV18 and NDTV and all the other places, do you think they could take a class action like you have?
Well, see, it depends on the circumstances. In case of Forbes, they are already taking action in Bombay and they are fighting the case. And if there have been problems in terms of the methodology of the termination, they should certainly be fighting those cases. Yes, there are legal problems. I know my case will drag on interminably. But the very fact is that if we have legal precedents, the point I'm making that this contract system, the way it's structured in journalism today is open to question and is not sustainable. If we can even get that much out, it will be a great change in terms of how we see our jobs. You know, there is some sense of protection. We have to fight for it. Yeah, you might need troublemakers who don't get jobs again, but that's life. You know, sometimes that happens. But I think I am at the position where I have enough avenues to sustain myself in terms of my writing and not have to worry about somebody who gives me a job or not.
But as I asked you, like the people who were fired, do you think on the same terms they could file a case like you are?
Well, I think, see, you'll have to tell me the specifics of each case. I mean, the law I've read...
Basic retrenchment.
Retrenchment cases have to be fought very differently from these cases. They fall under similar legal considerations, but the specifics are different.
But Hartosh, I can give you a list of editors who've been fired like this, and even worse.
Sure. So, I mean, each person responds the way they want to. I mean, I'm responding the way I think is appropriate. You can ask them the questions.
Hell.
Not raise hell is Manu's word. I didn't use the word raise hell. I'm just saying...
No, didn't you use that in a conversation
he says
with
that,
Manu?
I think he's using metaphorically. I don't use the term. I said, yes, I will go out and say my piece. I will say what I think is the reason for this. I will make it clear why I think this is wrong, etc. Yes, and I'm doing that. I mean, that's certainly within my rights, actually.
Actually, whenever somebody in India would say that I want to work for myself, and I would wonder why. It's good enough working for someone, what's the problem? But the point is, it changes when you get fired. That really makes me realize that sometimes it is good to work for yourself, because the kind of situation that we've seen in the recent past, of the number of people that are being fired, that have lost their jobs, and especially somebody like Siddharth Varadarajan, who again, it was not clear what the reasons were. Again, it was deemed to be a political issue. He's not filing any case that I know of. Doesn't it make it more difficult now for the owners, that they would be much more wary of hiring people of a certain ilk?
Well, see, I think in the end you get the journalism you deserve. I mean, people have to back the organizations that think represent something important. Now, if people are going to punish organizations for slants, then you will find that owners cannot go in that direction. So I think it has to be a two-way process. The viewer has to be very informed about the kind of ownership issues that come up, the kind of political pressures that exist. That can only happen if conversations like the one we are happen more often, so that much of this is out in public.
But Hartosh, even papers that we know are brazenly participating in paid news, and what is now disguised news also. People still read them.
Sure, they read them.
People are aware that they're doing it, but they're the largest selling newspaper in the world, not India. So what does it say about good journalism?
Well,
how will good journalism survive when the corporate world is winning, where profit motive is more important than the reason for doing journalism, which is supposed to be a public service?
Well, it's a question. I don't think we've ever managed to frame legislation that clearly sees journalism as a public service. We don't have a huge gap in our sort of legislation.
Hartosh, it used to be. It used to be a public service until, you know, all these
but that is because
selling the brand and all this paid
as
news
the
started.
owners realized that a lot of this idea of public service was not embedded in law or legislation, and it was easy to bypass it. But certainly questions of who owns media, who is allowed to own media, what kind of cross-ownership of media can exist, are important. That doesn't solve all the problems. Some of the people that you're mentioning may be players only within media, and yet these problems may occur. But I mean, again, that is a question. If somebody is working there, is aware of something, sees certain problems at some point or the other, that should emerge.
Well, you know, somebody like Vineet Jain has been quoted as saying, I don't sell newspapers, I sell advertising. We're in the business of advertising. So you're dealing with owners who have a very different way of thinking than the reason why these papers were started by their founders, as we remember them, and if you read the archives and the way journalism was practiced. And to my mind, there are three professions in which you can be hugely successful without being rich, which is medicine. You can be a very successful doctor without being rich. You can be a very successful lawyer without being rich, and you can be a very successful journalist without being rich. But you can't be a successful businessman unless you are rich. So that is your motive of success, your criteria of success makes your motivation of watching the bottom line all the time. So we have a clash already.
Absolutely.
We have a clash of the owner who wants to make maximum profit regardless of principles, and we have journalists who got into the profession possibly for the reasons that you've spoken of. So there seems to be a very unhappy marriage, and there seems to be no resolution to this.
Sure.
Or solution.
We don't have alternate models. See, one of the dangers that has come about is this country has become used to very cheap media. Well, cheap, I mean in terms of the expense that a consumer pays for media. So we don't have direct circulation models that work. You know, that itself insulates you against the pressures that advertising places. Because then it becomes a transaction that is directly between your reader and you. And I think our only real hope is that at some point or the other, the web does allow you to replace the old advertising model with this direct model where the relationship is between you and your reader, and the reader is responding to what you are writing, what you are saying, and not an advertiser who's comfortable with what you are writing, so they will put money in.
So I think actually then the web is the place where you can hope to see a return of good journalism, I think.
Sure.
And besides all the crap that the internet is filled with, the point is that it is truly democratic in the sense that anybody can write.
Sure.
But also then we run the danger that there's a lot of rubbish written, factually incorrect stuff. And people take whatever there is, and that's dangerous. So it's actually even more of a responsibility for us to try to keep the internet journalism as serious as possible.
Sure. I mean, look at the flip side. The great success of Open, or whatever readership it had, was largely on the web. Its print circulation is very, very low. I mean, and print circulation for all magazines across the country is not growing, but readership is not going down. So let's not confuse the two. Readership is just shifting to the web and is expanding. But the problem still with the web is what I said in the beginning. We are used to cheap media. We are used to free media. We are used to not paying. And I think if the country is bothered that this is the problem we are facing, then readers, viewers who are interested in news will have to find out the sources they think are credible and put some money in there. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
This is a pitch for the News Laundry subscriptions.
Oh,
Thank you,
I didn't know
Hartosh.
that. But that's what I believe. Yeah. That's what I seriously believe.
We have a slogan, pay for free news. Meaning
Absolutely.
free from pressure and,
that's the only way
advertising.
To go.
Tell me, where do you see yourself going now? Besides the case that's coming up, you have a book that's coming up.
A book on the Narmada, which is coming out very soon. And that was written the last time I was without a job.
Yeah.
So I'm using this time to write another book. As I said, I think it's a very important and serious issue that requires reportage on the legacy of 84. And next year is
on the side, why do you think the Congress and the Gandhi family has been able to get away with the 84 riots?
Well, I think it's a simple question. Till recently, if you go back and look at the whole pursuit of justice in the 84 riots, the issue had become forgotten in this country. One was immediately after 84, trouble started in Punjab. To focus too much on the injustice done to the Sikhs almost seemed at that point anti-national. There is this problem we are fighting of Sikh separatism. To write too much about 84 is to fan that separatism. So I think for a good 8 or 10 years, the kind of attention the news media should have given to the pursuit of justice, the Ranganath Mishra commissions, the kind of gross errors, and I would use the word even the Mishra commission, the 8 or 10 commissions which sat between 84 and 92, the kind of distortions of justice that process went through was never covered in the media in the way it should have been done. We learned that after Gujarat in 2002, what sustained focus on the pursuit of justice can do and deliver. And those were crucial years, because if witnesses had to speak, if cases had to be made out, those were the years it had to do. And the whole thing had died out till 2002 occurred, and it is only as a counter to Gujarat that a lot of people bring up 84, which is foolish, I mean, one doesn't justify or cancel out the other. Both are horrendous things. And
no, it's you're right that there's no point in bringing up one against the other. But the point is that my question remains that they were able to get away with it so easily. And I think my feeling is it's more of a sociological thing. It's more of a class thing.
That also.
It's also, there is the Gandhi family, Nehru family rather. Sure. There is that aura which no matter what happens is kind of Teflon.
Also, this class thing is very important. I mean, somebody active in the social circuit in Delhi, which of them would be comfortable being seen in the company of Maya Kodnani, for example? No, nobody would ever. But you can host Kamal Nath for parties all the time and nobody is bothered. I mean, the good man to hang around. He's the man who organizes a good time, etc. But people forget that there is a history. There have been charges made which have never been investigated, very serious charges. The man is our industry minister, commerce minister. So people say these legacies in the past. No, it is not. The Congress is fielding Sajjan Kumar's son now for the elections. So it's not as if the Congress is trying to distance itself. It's just trying to believe that we will forget and let this matter go.
It's really very serious. I think it hits the core of the country unless these things are taken up, and too many commissions which deliver nothing. And that is, I think, a serious problem. I hope your book reaches that point or covers that point, that the commissions have not shown to be effective at all. And also it's the government's choice whether they even table it in Parliament, and it's the government's choice whether any action is taken on it. So commission can be just be gathering dust as a report.
See, this is something that the Indian system specializes in. Abroad, the fight is for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, etc. In India, Truth and Reconciliation...
That's in South Africa, but in Britain, I think this Commission of Inquiry was taken from a colonial power that wanted to put a quietus on issues. So Simon Commission, all these commissions were formed basically to postpone any real action. And India, we copied it. Why? That's the big question.
In India, even if you get a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, we are so organized in our ability to subvert the truth that we will use that commission to bury the truth. The process of justice often in this country is a way of ensuring that the truth itself gets subverted. And this is what has happened with the 1984 killings.
Well, I wish you luck with your book, and thank you for coming, Hartosh.